participate in this memorable event. In 1956, the Cold War was at its height. Nuclear war was menacing mankind, and my presidency alleged that the world was on the verge of total destruction. Today, the consequences of Fukushima threaten the world. Unit 4 contains 10 times more cesium-137 than Chernobyl. A strong earthquake could mean collapse. The Japanese people realized from experience that nuclear energy generates unacceptable calamities. The collapse of Unit 4 could be one. Japan must assume the historic role of promoting denuclearization, both civilian and military. Ignoring the conditions of the Fukushima, nuclear reactors continue to be promoted at home and abroad. Fukushima must not be forgotten. In the name of the victims and 170,000 refugees, I call for a total ban of nuclear energy. The world must realize that any radioactive contamination creates immense and permanent harm for mankind and the earth. 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, and Fukushima are no less dreadful than atomic bombs. Nuclear reactors are potential super bombs. No single weapon can compete with the potential damage that can be caused by Fukushima Unit 4 or reprocessing plants. The Fukushima accident could have been more catastrophic for Japan and the world. The still present danger of a collapse of Unit 4 after an intensely severe earthquake must be broadcast the world over. Sound judgment would not have permitted construction of 54 nuclear reactors in a Japan menaced by frequent earthquakes and tsunamis. Only the lack of ethics and responsibility made it possible. Money and the corruption of power plant management sowed the seeds of catastrophe. This is not limited to Japan. The same technology that produces nuclear energy produces nuclear weapons. The proliferation of nuclear power plants leads to the proliferation of nuclear weapons, as we are seeing today in North Korea and Iran. There is no way to ensure the safety of future generations except to eliminate the use of nuclear fission technology across the planet. The lack of ethics and responsibility is highlighted by the absence of a solution for nuclear waste that threatens future generations. The Japanese nuclear village or nuclear dictatorship envisions the restarting and the export of nuclear reactors, thus regaining the offensive for the Japanese nuclear industry. This is immoral. It shows no sense of international or intergenerational responsibility. Alas, I fear it will last. Japan should warn the world of the consequences of not heading towards denuclearization. 8 years ago, I predicted that Japanese electric companies would decide Japan's fate. 2 years ago, at the World Congress of International Physicians for the Prevention of Nuclear War in Basel, I pleaded for mobilizing human wisdom to avert the ultimate catastrophe a nuclear calamity could produce. Sadly, these warnings did not deter my fears. Considering the worldwide consequences of a nuclear accident, countries not possessing nuclear reactors should urge denuclearization, be it military or civilian. Countries already opting for nuclear energy should do so as well. Originally, Japan had a maternal culture characterized by harmony and solidarity. After the Meiji Restoration was introduced to Japan, a paternal culture characterized by competition and confrontation in military form. History shows that paternal cultures end in catastrophe. Fukushima is the result of the supremacy of economy, another form of paternal culture introduced after World War II. The maternal culture of harmony is the remedy for the paternal culture of power. Nuclear accidents cause limitless consequences unacceptable to human society. Fukushima is a reminder that the possibilities of such a disaster should be completely zero. The great principle of a world without nuclear weapons and reactors should not be forgotten. The transition to maternal civilization is a prerequisite for this vision. Today, mankind faces a crisis of civilization. The true cause is lack of ethics. Fundamental ethics would prohibit the abuse and exhaustion of natural resources, leaving permanently poisonous waste and enormous death in its wake. Global ethics requires maternal culture, respecting the environment and interests of future generations. Three transitions are necessary. Turn selfishness to solidarity, greed to contentment, and materialism to spiritualism. Natural and renewable energies could amply supply the needs of such a civilization, with a transitional period supplemented by fossil fuels. We must prepare to make the short-term sacrifices in our lifestyles for the long-term safety of mankind and the Earth without nuclear energy. The proposal to hold a United Nations Ethics Summit draws more global attention. The trinity of global ethics, maternal civilization, and true denuclearization should become a reality. President Obama's vision of the world without nuclear weapons needs to become the world without nuclear weapons and nuclear reactors. The UN Ethics Summit is the first concrete step. I ardently hope that President Obama takes the initiative to realize this summit and create an International Day of Global Ethics to serve as a yearly reminder. Initially, controversy over content should be carefully avoided. In concluding, let me say the following. The critical situation at Fukushima requires the mobilization of human wisdom on the widest possible scale. The pressing need for setting up a neutral assessment team as well as an international technical cooperation team is evident. The fuel rods in the decaying cooling pool of Unit 4 must be moved to another place as soon as possible. It is a global security issue requiring maximum efforts, which regrettably are not being made. More and more Japanese are awakening to the real dangers of nuclear accident and nuclear reactors. Japan is thus heading steadily towards establishing zero dependency on nuclear energy. The will of heaven and earth is my translation of Providence as philosophy, protecting mankind and the earth. It will help achieve true denuclearization, civil and military, in due course. The rage of those who lost all will continue to enliven anti-nuclear movements in Japan and eventually abroad. Japan must now contribute to the realization of true denuclearization. Then the victims of Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and Fukushima will not have suffered in vain. Thank you.
Are you ready to begin?
No,
you are first on the schedule. National Energy and Environmental Institute, IER. Yes, and I've known Arjun for goes back into the 1980s when he was working on protecting the ozone layer. And he has had a brilliant career in looking at all aspects of energy. He has most recently written a book, Carbon-Free, Nuclear-Free by 2050. I commend it to you. If you really want to see a plan on how you can do things differently, he's got it. Our speakers are going to only be talking about 7 minutes each so that we can get all this expertise out and then we'll have questions. So, Arjun, if you're ready to lead off. No, he's not here. We will accommodate him, but he will have to wait till you finish.
Hi. Well, thank you very much, Brent. Actually, would want to thank Congressman Kucinich, even though he's not here. Carbon-Free, Nuclear-Free came out in the year in 2007, and he adopted it as his slogan during his 2008 presidential campaign. So he was one of the bold ones who said, okay. I want to thank Dave Freeman, who made the speech that inspired the book in 2006. Anyway, I want to tell you that I have changed my mind about carbon-free, nuclear-free. In the book I wrote that it would be feasible to do it in about 40 years. I've been following the technological development since then, and I think now that if we had the guts, we could do it in 25. Really, I do think in Germany the price of solar photovoltaics is $2.25 a watt, installed free of subsidies. It doubled the price here, which is an indication of a little bit of a policy mess that we have, and not enough demand, no RPS. Anyway, I want to tell you a few things about nuclear that I've learned since last year. I know you're going to hear about Fukushima. I'm not going to talk about that too much. But, you know, the big calling card of nuclear is that the wind doesn't blow all the time, and the sun doesn't shine all the time, but nuclear is 24/7. But for those of you who have been awake, and if you haven't been awake, I intend to wake you up, since March 2011, it has become evident, and there were signs of it before, that nuclear is 24/7 until it is 0 over 365. So currently, more than 60 commercial nuclear reactors are shut down for about 17% of the world. And most of these reactors have been shut down for more than 1 year. Of course, there are 2 in California that you know about. There's one in Nebraska that's flooded out still. And there's one in Florida, Crystal River. 8 were shut down in Germany because they don't want to be living near old nuclear power plants, and they shut down 8 prematurely. And 53 are shut down in Japan. Now they're shut down for various reasons. Of course, some of them had a few explosions. Some of them had steam generator installation problems. One of them had flooding. But for various reasons, they have been shut down for prolonged periods of time. So I don't believe that the idea that nuclear is 24/7 is any longer empirically or factually tenable. And I think we ought to stop making that assumption. The second thing that I've learned since last year, since Fukushima, has been the Germans making this decision to get out of nuclear faster than they had intended. Now, you know, all the results of that are not in. And I know we're all going to talk for a very short period of time, so I'm going to just leave you with a thought about Germany and what we ought to be doing. Which is, they made a very sudden decision. Sudden decisions are going to have some cost consequences and some turbulence consequences. What I'd like us to do is to make a more deliberate decision to get out of it. But even though they made a sudden decision, likely to cause turbulence, they're still an exporter of electricity. Their carbon price came down after some turbulence. Their photovoltaic prices are coming down. At a certain point, this dark depth cloudy country, which has less solar potential in terms of kilowatt hours per kilowatt installed than the sunny city of Seattle, Washington. But which installed 3 gigawatts of solar in December 2011, compared to 1.7 gigawatts of solar for the whole year in the United States. That's one of the reasons why prices of solar are half of what they are. But the technical fact that has come out of this transition is that baseload, even if it's running 24/7, especially in the form of nuclear, is incompatible technically with a nuclear future. Precisely because the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow all the time. You can't be jacking up the power of nuclear and backing it off in seconds. It's physically not possible. You can't do it in minutes and hours. It's physically possible to do it, but it's undesirable from the point of view of safety and longevity of the reactors. Nuclear is meant to be 24/7 until shut down for refueling or safety reasons or some other causes, but it's meant to operate as baseload. Because nuclear is not flexible, you cannot really marry it to high proportions of wind and solar. We don't notice it here because we don't have high proportions of wind and solar. But when the Germans are already in a place at a certain point last year, or not this year, they generated 50% of their power requirement instantly from solar in this dark, cloudy country. Sun does shine some of the time. Must have been one of those sunny days. And you need, so the National Renewable Energy Lab recently came out with a study saying we could have 80% renewables by the year 2050 if we wanted. But these renewables have to be married to flexible sources of supply. And I would say demand response is a kind of supply, and the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission has recognized this. Implicit, now that NREL did not say that nuclear would make a bad marriage, or coal, for that matter, would make a bad marriage with renewables, especially solar and wind. Politically unwise for them. But for me, you know, I run a small institute, so I can say what I please. And what pleases me is to say what is technically accurate. And so what is technically accurate is nuclear and coal, what we call baseload, and celebrate as baseload, the main calling card of the industry, other than pollution and nuclear waste, is not, so we have to make a choice. Where are we going to put this money? Where are we going to put the resources? If we want lots of renewables, don't take my word for it, read the National Renewable Energy Lab report and look at what's going on in Germany. So it's not going to cost greatly different to go to a renewable and efficient future compared to a nuclear future. The waste, pollution, and other consequences, climate consequences, are going to be seriously different. And I really think we ought to wake up. The last thought I leave you with is a simple fact. Germany has an export surplus with China. What do they know that we don't know?
Distinguished visitor from Japan, from Fukushima itself, is Mariko Bender, and her organization, which she's co-founder, is the World Network for Saving Children from Radiation. So we are going to get a first-hand story of what is going on and has been going on in Japan. So we welcome you.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk today. I am here to represent Fukushima children. I am Mariko Bender, a Japanese citizen living in the United States. But I have taken my sons to Japan every year since my son was 4 months old. So it was greatly a part of my life. I was once a Fukushima child. Remember Godzilla? The Godzilla monster attacked Fukushima. He was born from a nuclear explosion. Who could imagine Godzilla would haunt us almost 60 years later. It's ironic, a Fukushima man created him. Fukushima was beautiful. Its mountains, its lakes, hot springs, parks with ponds, and cherry blossom trees. Now, radiation took over. This radiation has spread to California and across the United States. It continues to spread out and contaminate the soil, the ocean, and our planet. This didn't happen to you, and it's going. Dr. Helen Caldicott said, if Unit 4 collapses, I will evacuate my family from Boston. Not from Japan, from Boston. We are about 50 miles away from Calvert Cliffs and 96 miles from North Anna. How safe are we really? When we told that nuclear power is safe and the accident wouldn't occur. Did you know that in Japan, the usual 1 millisievert has been raised to 20 millisieverts per year? 20 times more. In Chernobyl, anyone exposed to more than 5 millisieverts a year was evacuated. Others in area of 1 to 5 millisieverts were offered relocation. People in Fukushima are trapped in this highly contaminated area. It is as if they are in a gas chamber. People exposed to more than 1 or 5 or even more millisieverts a year live there. This is very personal because my father and sister still live in Fukushima too. My father refuses to leave. My sister will not abandon him. My sons ask, when can we visit Grandpa? I don't have an answer. There are many people like my family. Some live separately. A father stays in Fukushima for his job. A mother and children left Fukushima. Families are torn apart. People in Fukushima are victims, but in reality, they are discriminated against. My sister's friend's engagement was broken off. We don't want a bride from Fukushima, she was told. People in Fukushima hear mixed messages and are confused. The government tells them, you are safe to live in Fukushima, and I encourage them to return to live in highly contaminated areas. The media filters and give limited, rather biased information. Doctors in Fukushima say, you are okay to be exposed up to 100 millisieverts. Radiation is not inherited, that's what they say. Feel safe to give birth to a baby in Fukushima. Propaganda is heard across the land. Let's eat food from Fukushima to support. Doctors and scientists outside Fukushima warn them, however. Dr. Caldicott said, for example, all people, particularly children and pregnant women, should be immediately evacuated from high radiation zones. 360,000 children still remain in Fukushima, and 75% of them are living in highly contaminated areas. Imagine your son cannot play soccer on weekends. Imagine your daughter cannot swim in the pool without fear of radiation. In Fukushima, you see no small children play in the park and walk on the street. They look through the window and remember when they used to run around outside. Babies there will never know what ordinary life once was. School kids in Fukushima hear a different story. Their schools tell them to play sports outside and swim in the outside pool. Can you imagine you have even though the air is filled with radiation. Business as usual. One common thing for all children in Fukushima is they all eat food with radioactive materials. Can you imagine you have no choice but to feed your children with fruits, vegetables, and cereal with radiation as additives? Children in Fukushima cannot breathe like we do. Every moment of their lives, they are breathed in radiation. And the radiation goes into your skin, into their thyroid, and their lungs, and alters their DNA. The health management survey found abnormal thyroid growth in 43% of children in Fukushima, but doctors say not to be concerned. They're reluctant to give the test result to a patient and discourage the second opinion. Patients have to wait 2 years for follow-up. One child is discovered to have thyroid cancer just recently. This survey is screening, not for treatment. What is the real purpose? Children have lost muscles, they are under stress, there are signs of diabetes and heart diseases. Member of Fukushima just recently visited Naljichi in Ukraine and visited nursery schools and the hospital. There are 1,000 children over there, and every single child over there have multiple diseases. Every child. 26 years later of Chernobyl accident. I really want you to think about that. I want to share some voices from children of Fukushima. Can I give birth to a healthy baby when I grow up? Can I let my dog run around outside one day? Why do we have to suffer from the nuclear power plant adults built? Please protect us from radiation. Lives of Fukushima children are in our hands, in the responsible adults' hands. I'm asking you a little plain, ordinary, everyday kindness. Help evacuate children now. Call the office of Japanese Prime Minister, email them and tell them that we want the children out. Please give children a chance to breathe the fresh air like your children do. Help us build a clinic to treat children with thyroid issues. This is urgent. We need the independent clinic. Go to our website, World Network for Saving Children from Radiation, to find out more. Save the children and our future children. We must act now. Thank you.
He will come up and welcome you.